Hey guys, it's Drew again. This last week, out of nothing more than sheer boredom, I started looking into something and then ended up uncovering more and more things, and I ended up going down this long rabbit hole. And when I was all finally said and done, it really led to one question. What took us so long? You want to find out what I was digging into? Well, let's check it out. So sometimes we end up sitting around and just thinking about stuff, whether it's our card or baseball or history or whatever, and we're like, oh, I want to look that up, and you end up looking it up, and it leads to one thing to another. I think we've all done that. But this last week, all this started with a friend of mine, Will Steffi, and Steffi, I found out, by the way, is actually how he pronounced his last name, but he never wanted to correct anybody, so I thought that was kind of funny.
I'm talking to you, Brewer.
But anyway, Will has been looking for a specific card for a long time. It's a very big card. It was a card that is sort of the pinnacle of his collection of what he really wanted. And it took him a long time to make a plan to save up for it, to do it. And he'd been looking in earnest at auction houses and eBay and other places, and for at least 9 months. And I'm not going to say what the card is, but I will say it was Jackie Robinson card, because he's a big Jackie Robinson collector. And he and I were talking, and he did win his card, and he's so excited, and I'm really thrilled for him. So again, congratulations, Will. But one of the things about this was he talked about how from the time he had started to the time he actually won a bid, he noticed very quickly Jackie Robinson cards just kept on ticking away. They just kept going up and up and up. And he felt more and more pressure to, like, I got to get in on this, because there's going to be a point where my ability to save up for a card is going to get slower than the rise of what the value is, and he would just outprice him, and then he'd never be able to find one. And I thought that was kind of interesting because, while we've all seen cards go up and a little bit down or settle in, it's kind of unusual to see a card rise so fast, where a card worth this week, and really in a couple weeks you can flip it and sell it for this much, especially with vintage cards. I mean, there's this steadiness to it, there's a rise to it, but not that drastic. So here's what the rabbit hole was. I started looking at the auction house that Will ended up winning his card at, and out of curiosity, I thought, I wonder where this card was, I don't know, say a year ago. So I went back in their history and I looked, and sure enough, he was right. I mean, the same type of card, the same grade, the same eye appeal, and all that sort of, all things given equal, it had gone up a significant chunk in a year. So I thought, I wonder where it is going back even farther. I kept looking back into it, and of course it kept on rising. It was Heritage Auctions, and the thing about Heritage is it's huge, and it's been around for a long time, and you can archive or find in their archive stuff. And I went all the way back into 2005, and I started investigating Jackie Robinson cards, because what I remember when I was collecting actively and building sets 15 years ago or 20 years ago, Jackie Robinson, while he was a star and while you were going to pay a premium, he wasn't Jackie Robinson type prices. And I wanted to see if this was true or if I just had a poor memory of it. I'll give you an example. The very first set that I ever put together, vintage set, was 1955. And Jackie Robinson, of course, was in there. Now, I have a 1955 Jackie Robinson, but this is not the card that I originally bought way back in, it was probably 2002, off of eBay. The big card, which is still the big card in that set, of course, is the Roberto Clemente rookie card. Jackie Robinson, though, it was going to be probably at that time, and now, again, I collect low-grade, raw kind of cards, and so take that for what it is. But Jackie Robinson, probably I spent $35, maybe $40 on, and that was normal. I mean, you could find any day of the week on eBay cards in those grades for about that price. So this specific card, I bought, I think it was 3 years ago, and I looked for this card, looked for it, and I finally found it, and I got a great deal on it, a great deal. Now, this is about the same grade, the same type of card that I had all those years ago, and I spent $250 on this. So at least 5 times X. Now you say, well, there was the COVID bump, and there was, this jump in all this stuff. But if you look back, other players, they didn't jump up the same level. And I'm not talking, Hank Aaron was one of the ones that jumped, and so did Willie Mays. But look at some of the other guys. Ted Williams, he didn't jump 5 times, and he's still Ted Williams. He hasn't done anything to hurt his image or help his image, just like Jackie Robinson or any of these other guys. They just stay the same, or at least they went up, but not at the same level. Same thing in this one. I bought this one a couple years after the 55, and this is my 1953 Jackie Robinson. And I very specifically remember I won this card on eBay for $50. And this was probably in 2012. So now this is at least 10 years after I won my original 1955 card, and it didn't jump a whole lot. And 53, I would argue, is a more iconic or sought after card than the 55, but it's still Jackie Robinson. And anyway, I started thinking about this, and I started looking at Heritage, and I was looking specifically at the 1949 Bowman Jackie Robinson. And the reason I was looking at that card, that's not the card that Will won, by the way, because the Leaf, is considered his rookie card, and it always kind of has been. And while that might change based on how people look at the Leaf and when it came out, the 49 Bowman was still one of his youngest and newest. And I thought that's a nice, kind of bigger card, more desirable, and to see where it was. And back then, you could get a 1949 Bowman, let's say low grade, graded around a 1, in Heritage, and it was, I don't know, $150. Maybe $200. There was a couple that had lots that had a raw one included, and he was just a star that was in there. And the $400 for that lot, which had other stars in it. And as I looked over time, I started jumping up year by year, 2010, 12, 15, and so on. And I noticed that Jackie Robinson was still not crazy expensive. By 2015, which was only about 10 years ago, it was maybe $400, $600. Whereas now that same card is, I don't know, almost $3,000. And so here's the other part of the rabbit hole. I've been on Net54 for years and years, really when it first started. And for whatever reason, this had nothing to do with the Jackie Robinson, but I had already done all that investigating from the Heritage. And I was looking at past threads that I had started just to kind of reminisce and look back and think about it. And I had found a thread I started in 2015. And I was kind of sick and tired as a collector about everything was Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle, 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 Mantle. And all the conversations were Mantle, and all the prices were Mantle, and all the sets were about Mantle. And I'm like, there's so much about vintage cards that is not Mantle. And I was honestly a little tired of it. So I started a thread and I said, hey, I want to ask you guys something. Name 5 of the most iconic vintage post-war cards that don't include Mantle. And I just wanted to see what people thought. And I explained how, we kind of over-mantleize everything. I wanted to see what other people really looked at and collected. And people started giving their answers. Well, I think the 63 Rose. The 68 Nolan Ryan was very, very high as far as one of the most that was listed. And as this thread continued on, again, this was over 10 years ago, it took 38 posts. It was the 38th post before someone finally mentioned any Jackie Robinson card. And I thought that was interesting. At the time, I didn't think it was interesting, but I thought it was interesting today. So I reposted the same question last week just to see. I wanted to see, did the mindset change about who Jackie Robinson was to us as collectors? And I listed it and I said, this is a social experiment. I want to see, same question. I didn't say why I was doing this. I just said I wanted to see how our minds have changed, if anything. The very first post after me, someone listed Jackie Robinson. What was it? Now, that may have been coincidence. It's a very small sample size. Why is it that the Jackie Robinson in 15 or 10 years ago was in the 38th post, and this year it was only, the second post after mine? But the point is that Jackie Robinson has made a thing. And my question is why? Why is it? He didn't change anything. His career is the same. He was the first. It was already known to collectors back 10, 15, 20 years ago that Jackie Robinson was the first to break the color barrier. But what was it that made him change so much to where he's such an icon now, to where his card prices are so just astronomical? And it goes back to a conversation I had back in 2021. Now, this is at the height of the explosion of the boom. And I went to a card show and I was really excited because prices were like, it was one of those things where you could buy a card and literally any card were going up, and vintage was going crazy, and there was all this money coming in. And you guys remembered if you were around, or maybe that's when you got caught up into cards. But one of the things that I remembered was that that I was talking to a dealer and I was really big into Stan Musial. And I said something to him. I was like, well, I'm just waiting and Stan Musial is going to be big. And I had this big Stan Musial collection and had his rookie card and it's got his leaf and I've got all these other cards. And I thought, I can't wait for it to start really exploding like all these other guys. And he kind of shook his head. He said, I don't think you will. And I said, why not? He said, he wasn't cool. So what do you mean? He said, think about it. Ask any non-baseball, fan out there just walking on the street and say, hey, can you name any two players from history in baseball? More than likely, they're going to name Babe Ruth, well, because he's Babe Ruth, and Jackie Robinson. And Jackie Robinson, because he's taught in every school every year about what he did and how his impact was impact on society. And there's sort of a cool factor about that. He said, look at the cards that are exploding. Willie Mays was exploding. And, Willie Mays had it cool about him. Hank Aaron had this quiet dignity about him. It was cool, and he exploded. Jackie Robinson, because he broke the barrier. Clemente, because he had this great career and then this tragic end, but it was so heroic. All this stuff was cool. He said, what was cool about Stan Musial? Yeah, he had a great career, but was he cool? And of course, I'm thinking, well, yeah, he was cool, but in truth, no, he wasn't. I mean, not like that, not from a non-baseball, non-statistic based outlook. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So I just thought about this. So let me ask you this. What took us so long? What was it about Jackie Robinson that 5 years ago, all of a sudden everyone decided that card is worth more money and they continue to rise? Jackie Robinson has some great cards. There's only a limited amount, but there's only been a limited amount since he was a player. I didn't show it yet, but I also do have his 1956. So I'm very pleased to own 3 different Jackie Robinson cards. And whether I ever add another one, I don't know. Maybe there'll be one out there in the future, but they are getting harder and harder. But I thought it was an interesting thought to think, what was it about Jackie Robinson in this career that made him suddenly explode? So let me know in the comments. Tell me what you think. Why was it that he exploded? What was it about it? Was it just the cool factor? Was it just this sudden realization? Or was he just undervalued so much for so many years and people just, I don't know, it just started a snowball that can't be stopped? Let me know what you think. I appreciate you as always. Until next time, you guys be good.